Happy Sundance Day 2.
We've already made it past day 1. Now we're just flying.
And we're back with an actual nightcap this time.
Yeah, I mean, obviously a nightcap after a long day of watching movies is so worth it. And it also helps us talk a little more freely, openly.
Let's get
Cheers.
Started.
This might take a minute.
All right, we did it.
Like every Modelo commercial I've seen before.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Well, the first movie we saw was last night, and that was One for the Road.
Yeah, I have to say it was such a great film to watch for me right off the bat in terms of being such a rich cinematic movie. Thai director, best known for some thriller films previously. His name is Baz Poonpiriya. I believe I'm saying that right.
Mm-hmm.
But wow, the cinematography, that's what everyone's talking about. It's just so dazzling, so rich. It's basically a familiar story about two friends who go on a road trip. One is dying of cancer. That's not a huge spoiler.
Yeah, you know what's funny is it actually reminded me of High Fidelity meets The Fault in Our Stars, because it is, which sounds
yes, a lot of pop.
Very random. A lot of pop. There was Elton John was in there.
A lot of needle drops, yeah.
It fully reminded me of High Fidelity right in the beginning. Like basically it's this cancer-stricken younger guy who goes on this road trip, like you said, with his best friend to see his ex-girlfriends and kind of make amends and say goodbye for the last time. But he doesn't want to tell them that he's dying. So it's kind of a clean break for both of them. My only thing with it is it felt like it kind of tried to do a lot of things in one movie.
Yes, definitely.
Which I read your review and I agreed with you that it felt a little bit all over the place. It was kind of funny with like these whip pan sort of things, but then it got really sad and I didn't really know how to feel about it.
Yeah, I fully agree. That was one of the things that I picked up on. And that was jarring. Audiences should know that it is kind of odd when you're watching it. Not a lot of movies do this. When it's silly, it's very silly and very absurd. And when it's sad, which the movie gets to be very sad, it's a romantic movie about loss and nostalgia, it gets to be really sad. Would you agree that it kind of feels like the movie is two separate movies? Like when that big kind of reveal or switch happens, right?
Yes.
Won't say it here, but about halfway through or in the third act, there's this reveal between the two best friends that kind of threatens their friendship, but it almost becomes a different movie entirely.
Mm-hmm.
I have to say, I liked the second half of that movie much more. I thought it was more emotionally resonant and just gripping. I was really on the edge of my seat for that second half. After the movie, the audience was able to do a Q&A. And so one of the things that an audience member commented that I thought was really astute, a great observation, was that they said that in this movie, the pop songs, which we keep talking about, as well as the movie's focus on, which I loved, the carefully curated cocktails, all of the mixologists. I mean, there's like whole sequences where they're just making a cocktail. This person was saying that the pop songs and the cocktails served as these moments where the characters were able to get in touch with their previous selves. And like, those were the moments where they were looking at forgiveness, forgiving themselves, others, how both of those things were like entry points to, like I guess forgiveness at large.
Interesting. What about I understand the songs because I was just looking at my phone. Elton John's Tiny Dancer, that's in it. Cat Stevens' Father and Sons is in it. So that's kind of like an obvious observation of, I understand what the song is saying, so I can connect the dots there. But I'm wondering is it because like when you drink, you're just more open and vulnerable?
I think so. I think you're more nostalgic and you're more maybe sorrowful. You're remembering the past. That's what these characters were doing. There was the one sequence where they were talking about all of the drinks, the names of the drinks, and how they were like literally ex-girlfriends, not the actual names, but it was like Amy's dance is this cocktail drink and someone's tears were this other one. All that to say that this movie has some of the best sort of drink making moments that I've seen in a long time. So
cocktail ASMR.
And for a movie that is produced by Wong Kar-wai, I mean, the cinematic legend himself, like I don't think you would expect anything less.
A great first movie for sure. I mean, I've been hearing a lot of good things about Coda as well, which we haven't seen yet.
No.
But I'm happy with our choice for One for the Road.
Oh, absolutely. Cool. So, I mean, that was last night. That was Thursday night. Today was Friday.
Ooh.
I mean, like a full day of films. I saw 3. Did you see 4? You saw 4, right? Because you saw Homeroom at 9 a.m. So hats off to you. You won the day.
Thank you.
Tell me about Homeroom.
Okay, so you saw, I mean, you loved Boy State, right?
Yeah, last year's Boy State is on Apple TV Plus. Loved it.
Yeah, well, so picture Boy State 2.0. This movie was directed by Peter Nix, and he is a documentarian. This is the 3rd installment of a trilogy about movies that he has made in Oakland about different social justice issues. Homeroom is a film that follows a group of high school seniors that are going through the school system during the pandemic. It wasn't intentional that the pandemic was going to happen, because it like no one knew up until March, towards the end of their senior year, that this was even, Corona was even a thing. So the beginning of the film is very much following these kids just kind of in class, doing their after school theater productions, ASB meetings. A group of them are fighting the decision to have police in their school. Oakland High School, they're the only school in their district that has their own police force.
Wow.
And a lot of the kids are really on edge about that, and they're really anxious because they don't like police, because police don't like them. So
right. It's ironic that you would not feel safe with, you know, a legal system, legal law enforcement there with you, and to have, you know, armed people like just right outside the halls. What a weird dynamic.
Right.
Wow.
Well, and it's interesting because it got me thinking too. I mean, with us, we never had police at our high school. We had Romo.
Yeah. One guy did it all, but yeah.
But we could win him over very easily. But when we see police, we aren't immediately afraid. But for these kids, they are. And they've grown up in the system where they are made to fear police. The film in the beginning kind of talks about that, and how a lot of these kids that are super articulate, really smart, they go to city council meetings and they go to school board meetings, and they are explaining their position as to why they think that defunding the police at their school, they could take that money and allocate it towards other school programs and things like that. But then March comes around and they get the news that Corona is in the Bay Area and it's taking over, and, you know, a mandatory 3-week stay at home, you're learning from home. And it's heartbreaking towards the end, because these kids that worked so hard their entire school careers and have been wanting to go to college and like go away and get out of, you know, their situation, or wear this really special suit to prom that they were so excited about, that doesn't happen. And I mean, they graduate on Zoom, and they're as happy as they can be, and it's just like a bummer. Kind of.
Yeah. I can only imagine.
Yeah.
I only know just like, you know, our cousins that have had to go through that. What a interesting time for a documentary to be getting made and shot, and then this breaks out. I mean, does it feel like it's cohesive to what the original story was?
You can tell that they weren't expecting this COVID narrative to pop up, so it does kind of feel a little bit disjointed when that does happen. But I mean, that's a documentary for you. You know, you can't predict it, you can't plan it or anything. So that, in that sense, it was great for capturing just the real life of these kids.
Well, that sounds really powerful and really special for that reason. Absolutely. The first one that I watched today was Cryptozoo. It's an animated film. It has this hand-drawn 2D, very flat animation style that looks like something that you might see on like Adult Swim or on the Netflix show Midnight Gospel. So it's like an animated show, an animated movie for adults. Dash Shaw was the director of Cryptozoo. His animation director, Jane Samborski, they did this movie called my entire high school sinking into the sea.
Which I saw, and Sundance actually covered it a couple of years ago.
Yes, I did not see this movie. I regret having not seen it to date.
You still can. It's somewhere. It's good. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it now because Cryptozoo it's fun. It's imaginative. It's a movie about cryptids, which if you're not familiar, not you watch the movie, but the world out there ain't familiar.
People.
If you, person, get wise, aren't familiar with cryptids, these imaginary fantasy creatures like griffins, unicorns, things like that, the Medusas, all these fantasy, these animals
mythological creatures.
That's the perfect word for it. They're just not proven to be real. So the humans live amongst these cryptids. Basically, they're like endangered animals. Different people use them in different ways. Some hunt them, exploit them, trade them. The US government is looking to weaponize them. The main character in this, Lake Bell, plays an activist, and she's trying to save all of the cryptids. You're gonna go into this movie wanting to just kind of turn off your brain, check out, and let the very trippy animation, very stoner friendly, I said in my review. Animation just kind of do its thing. It's funny, it's really inventive, but it's also really empathic. It's not like exploiting just some lazy stoner animation style for no sake at all. It actually uses this style, which is very reminiscent of like 60s counterculture magazines and graphic novels, to tell its story. For a film that is just an animated film, for one that has a very like psychedelic, trippy visuals made for people who could be stoned, could be on some other mind-altering substance, high on life, it's still got a good message for you. And I think that anyone that chooses to watch this is going to be for sure entertained and then pleasantly rewarded.
Yeah, and just one more thing I want to point out, that the composer of the film is this guy, John Carroll Kirby, who is this really cool atmospheric producer. And that, I think, adds another element to the film of a very enlightened sort of watch. So fans of his, like he's played a lot at this bar in downtown called In Sheep's Clothing. A lot of really cool like listening bars and NTS and yeah, a little more like, I guess, underground stuff. Plays his music a lot. I understood
like 2 words of that, but I trust that means that his music is really good.
His music is really cool, man.
Need to know basis. But yeah, it was really, I can definitely agree with you that like these modulated synths are very reminiscent of like maybe a 70s or 60s film, and like this pan flute that's kind of in the whole thing, right? Like this funny little pan flute just makes this little appearance throughout, and it kind of gives it this like rooted connection to indigenous culture, to native culture. So I thought that was really smart. And yeah, hey, I'm trying to find out where these underground secret listening bars are so I can listen to some John Carroll Kirby.
They're in the Cryptozoo.
Yeah. Sure.
Yes. Cool. Well, so that was just 3 of the films we saw. We're going to talk about some more in our next video. So if you liked this video, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss another one.
Yeah. In fact, the next one, which we're about to tape. So stay tuned.
Bye.